There are gigantic 800-ton granite blocks carved with extreme precision, together with enormous tombs surrounded by water moats that have never been excavated. There are colossal quarries covered with machine marks and cut with laser-like precision. There are massive stone walls resembling those found in Peru and Egypt, the blocks of which couldn't be moved even today with our modern technology. Join us in this documentary, where we will explore the prehistoric marvels of an unknown civilization, which was once the home of an advanced ancient civilization before the end of the last ice age.
It's really funny how archaeologists label everything as temples and tombs. Take the Great Pyramids, for example. Despite no mummies, bodies, or human remains being found in these structures, they still insist they must be tombs. Most mummies were actually found in the Valley of the Kings. But hey, let's not let facts get in the way of a good theory. One thing that I love that archaeologists do is when they make a finding of some object and they can't really interpret it and can't figure out what it is and what it was used for, so they conclude that it must just be some sort of religious relic. Rather than consulting with construction experts, masons, or engineers who could explain and demonstrate how difficult certain stones are to cut or move, and the logistics of planning that went into these ancient structures, archaeologists just dismiss all outside opinions and come up with their own. It's like that one Tumblr screenshot where archaeologists found knives stored under the roofs of houses in a pre-Columbian society. They concluded that the society believed knives would be sharper if stored closer to the gods and the sun. But a mother pointed out they were probably just stored out of reach of children. This shows the importance of having diverse backgrounds in science. Yeah, not just because it's practical, but also because it's so silly when they get it wrong. Paleontologists do the same thing. When unsure about the function of some anatomical feature, they'll guess it was for attracting a mate. The plates of the Stegosaurus, for instance, might have been for thermoregulation or defense. But since there's no consensus, they throw in the hypothesis that other Stegosauruses thought they looked hot. It's the paleontology equivalent of the political science equivalent is even more frustrating. Whenever a country has its entire social structure and national boundaries imposed by Western countries, suffers massive human life losses due to colonial forced labor regimes and economic exploitation, and any attempt at self-determined government is shattered by Western secret services installing puppet presidents to ensure continued corporate access to resources, they just say, maybe it's ethnic tensions. These skewed or narrow perspectives affect many groups and prevent true progress, insight, and understanding from emerging. Instead of embracing a broader range of expertise and perspectives, they cling to their own limited views, hindering the advancement of knowledge and a deeper comprehension of our past.
What archaeologists fail to mention is that you cannot carbon date stone. This is a critical oversight that they conveniently ignore as they dig holes and carefully brush away dirt, claiming they are preserving specimens and preventing contamination. The reality is that they are often robbing graves and stealing bones under the guise of scientific inquiry. While they might carbon date organic materials found at these ancient sites, such as remnants of a fire used to roast a chicken bone or a body wrapped and placed in what they now call a grave, these results do not accurately date the structures themselves. By carbon dating these items or analyzing inscriptions added later, archaeologists are only determining the age of those specific artifacts, not the true age of the structures or the civilizations that built them. Ancient structures like the pyramids, which can endure tens of thousands, if not hundreds of thousands of years, were standing long before any of the buildings in New York City or Tokyo existed. They will continue to stand long after those modern constructions have crumbled into dust. Yet, many of these ancient sites are wrongly attributed to the most recent occupants rather than the original builders. Archaeologists often give credit to the latest civilization to occupy these sites, ignoring the possibility that these structures were created by much earlier and possibly more advanced cultures. I've compiled my own list of sites where archaeologists have likely misdated the timeline. My approach focuses on several key criteria: the type of stone used, with a preference for sites constructed from natural stones rather than cement. Whether the structure was built above ground or carved into bedrock, and the presence of advanced tool marks, indications that the stones were worked with methods beyond the capabilities of known ancient technologies. This includes stones too large to move by primitive means, those that appear melted or lathed, or those bearing signs of high-powered drills or saws. Another important factor is whether the site was accessible by ancient sea routes, rivers, canals, or other waterways, even during the Ice Age when polar sea routes were impassable and the Panama Canal did not exist. Only civilizations with advanced navigation, like the Atlanteans or those around the Mediterranean, Red Sea, and Pacific Ocean, could have reached these locations. These civilizations would have stuck close to known coastlines and islands to ensure access to fresh water, using the stars to guide their way. Lastly, I considered sites with shared myths, religions, or cultural characteristics. Just as Greek and Roman mythologies share characters with different names, and Germanic folklore overlaps with Norse mythology, ancient cultures worldwide share striking similarities. From the global flood myths to the common practice of building pyramids and performing head binding to elongate skulls, these connections hint at a shared ancient knowledge or origin. Using these criteria, I have compiled an extensive catalog of sites, all of which would have been accessible by boat or ship, allowing the transport of tools, equipment, and large groups of people. The full list, complete with Google Maps and Google Earth links, is available in the description below. Some of the notable sites include Giza, Petra in Jordan, the rock-cut temples in India, the rock-hewn churches in Ethiopia, Angkor Wat in Cambodia, Easter Island, Cusco in Peru, and many others. This version places the focus on the limitations of carbon dating right at the start, the forgotten masters of stone. In the annals of history, the ancient builders who worked with granite and other impossibly hard stones remain shrouded in mystery. Granite, andesite, and basalt, these are not stones that yield easily to primitive tools. In fact, the very idea that ancient peoples with rudimentary technology could have quarried, shaped, and transported these massive blocks defies conventional understanding. Yet, scattered across the world, we find evidence of advanced quarrying and construction techniques that suggest a shared knowledge, a lost technology among the builders of ancient Peru, the creators of the Sphinx, the Osirian, Luxor Serapeum, Petra, Göbekli Tepe, the Ellora Caves in India, and the Moai on Easter Island. These ancient sites, built with the hardest stones known to man, bear striking similarities in construction methodology. The precision with which these stones were cut, often interlocking with no need for mortar, and the massive scale of the blocks used point to a technology that modern science struggles to explain. The smooth, polished surfaces and intricate carvings found in these locations were not the work of primitive chisels or hammers. Instead, they suggest the use of advanced tools capable of drilling, sawing, and even melting stone, a level of sophistication that seems out of place in the timeline of human history. It is not just the techniques that bind these ancient builders together, but also their apparent understanding of the properties of these hard stones. Granite, for instance, is a rock so dense and durable that even modern quarrying methods struggle with it. And yet, in places like Peru and Egypt, we see enormous granite blocks shaped and fitted with astonishing precision. The same can be said for andesite, the volcanic rock used in the construction of Sacsayhuaman in Peru, a stone so hard that it rivals the durability of granite. The question that arises is, how did these ancient builders, separated by vast distances and time, come to possess such similar knowledge and techniques? The answer may lie in a shared origin or a forgotten civilization that passed down this advanced technology. This civilization, perhaps lost to time, had mastered the art of working with stone in ways that would astound modern engineers. They understood the intricacies of quarrying, moving, and shaping these massive stones, a knowledge that has since been lost or suppressed. As future civilizations stumbled upon these ancient sites, they were both awed and perplexed. Some tried to quarry the already built structures, seeking to reuse the stones in their own constructions. But many found that the stones were too hard, too large, and too intricately placed to be easily repurposed. The Sphinx, the Osirian, and the temples of Luxor stand as silent witnesses to the failed attempts of later peoples to replicate or dismantle the works of these ancient masters. These ancient sites were not just reused, they were revered. Civilizations that followed often built upon or around these structures, incorporating them into their own cultures and myths. But the original builders and the technology they used were forgotten, their legacy buried beneath layers of history. As we stand in the shadow of these ancient wonders, it becomes clear that our understanding of the past is incomplete. The granite blocks of the Sphinx, the intricately carved stones of Petra, and the mysterious statues of Easter Island all tell a story of a lost civilization with knowledge far beyond what we have been taught. It is a story that challenges the conventional narrative and suggests that the true history of humanity is far older and far more complex than we ever imagined.